Morning, councillors, CEO, directors, ladies and gentlemen. The traditional custodians of this wonderful land we call home represent a human occupation dating back almost 60,000 years, and in our valley, that's the Iwi people. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and those emerging. The council meeting is being streamed live in accordance with the council's policy and standing orders, and we welcome our online audience. We note the members of the public attending today that by attending the meeting, you are consenting to your voice and image being broadcast and recorded in accordance with council's standing orders. So thank you very much. I'll declare the meeting open. And we have a prayer today. Leading us in prayer is Pastor Mackay Kubiak. Pastor, thank you. Did I get your name right?
Yes, I like to say to everyone that the way my name is pronounced, because it is a weird name on paper, is it doesn't take much.
Doesn't take much.
Very good. Mr. Mayor and council members, thank you so much for the opportunity to just address you this morning briefly. Yes, Mackay Kubiak is my name. I'm an associate pastor for the Seventh-day Adventist Church in the area of Mackay, and my colleague Ramoso Tangaloa, I believe, also shared a prayer with you earlier this year. So thank you for the honour of giving me that chance to do that this morning. And I just wanted to share with you guys a priestly blessing found in the book of Numbers in the Bible, which is actually part of the Hebrew law known as the Torah. Okay? And this is something that God instructs Moses, the leader of Israel, to say to them. It says, "Then the Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron and his sons to bless the people of Israel with this special blessing. May the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord smile on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord show you his favor and give you his peace. When Aaron and his sons bless the people of Israel in my name, I myself will bless them." And so God intends to bless the children of Israel, but he says that in doing this blessing, the blessing will return back onto the priests, the leaders of that nation. And I am just praying that God's blessing is with each and every one of you today as you undertake the work of leading our region. And yes, a big thank you to each and every one of you for what you do. So let me pray for you this morning. Dear Lord, I want to thank you so much for this Mackay Council. I want to thank you for the leadership of Mayor Greg Williamson in this area, and I just pray that you may guide them, you may lead them, and Lord, above all else, that you may bless them as they undertake the work of bettering people's lives within Mackay and beyond. So I give them to you today. Thank you so much for hearing our prayer. In Jesus' name.
Amen. Thanks, Pastor. Thanks very much. We have nobody absent on council business. We have an apology to record for Councillor May, who's unable to be with us today. So would somebody like to move the acceptance of that apology? Councillor Mann, seconded by Councillor Green. Those in favour? Against? The motion's carried. Thank you. Condolences? Any condolences, councillors? No condolences. We move on then to the confirmation of the minutes. The minutes of the 8th of September, the ordinary meeting, have been circulated. Somebody like to move they be adopted? Councillor Mann moves, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. There's only one item arising in business out of that, and that's been noted in your agenda on page 5. So let's move on. There's no mayoral minutes today. The consideration of committee reports and recommendations. First of all, it's the Audit Committee report for the minutes of the meeting of the 26th of August. Are there any questions around that Audit Committee report? There's a fairly lengthy Audit Committee, and of note in that particular report is 6.15, the internal audit report on asset management. There's a very large discussion on asset management at the audit report, and out of that came a suggestion that Council develop a roadmap to put together all of the various asset management improvement initiatives that we have underway. So that was more for the benefit of the Audit Committee, but once that's tabled, I think it'll be a great benefit to this council as well. So that was one thing that I found quite enlightening in that Audit Committee. There's no further questions. Would somebody like to move the adoption of the Audit Committee report? Councillor Bella moves, seconded by Councillor Townsend. Councillor Bella? Okay, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Correspondence and officers' reports. 11.1.1, the strategic financial report from the Office of the Mayor and CEO for August 21. CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're showing an operating variance of 2.2 million year to date. Most of that's in timing, so we've got increased revenues, which is reflecting the NRL revenues coming in. We haven't yet had all the expenses leaving the accounts yet on that. And of the other expense line items on the material services line, that's roughly where it needs to be. There's about 500k relating to landfill contractor services, which again is a timing issue. We expect those invoices to be coming in there late. In terms of the staff and the staff line items, 270k of that's due to recruitment being slow in the park space while we work through the restructure. In terms of CapEx, we're probably about 3 million behind, 11% sort of year to date, so a little bit behind, but overall roughly where we need to be.
Thanks, CEO. Questions for the CEO? No questions? Somebody like to move the adoption of the report? Councillor Englert moves, seconded by Councillor Mann. Councillor Englert?
I think the CEO's covered.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's no further speakers. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Thank you. Move on to reports now. 11.2, the Development Services report for the month of August. And we have an acting director, Fiona Cousins. Thank you.
Thank you. So just some highlights for the month for Development Services. So Parks hosted the native plant giveaway on the 20th and 21st of August. So very successful again. So we had over 500 properties come and collect their 4 free plants, with also additional plants being purchased from the Natural Environment Centre. There were 3,743 plants that left the nursery that weekend, so that was fantastic. We are certainly coming into peak event season. It's been a busy month, and we're continuing to work on reviewing our internal efficiencies and structures in that space. So we've had internal interviews, and we've been doing some interviews of our event organisers as well during August, so expecting that to come in September, some of the results from that study. The economic development team is continuing to work on the National Economic Development Conference. Unfortunately, due to COVID and border closures, we have had to pivot and take that conference fully online, but we're still working really hard to promote Mackay as much as we can, and that will be held in October as scheduled. Hooked on Mackay again is continuing momentum, and we've seen that a lot in our partnerships over the last month, and continuing to roll out the ambassador campaign. So we've had another video uploaded to YouTube. I've had 72 views on its first day, and that's the 4th, and we're still working on another one. So that campaign continues to get us great success and exposure. And also finally, acknowledging the tragic passing of Trudy O'Rourke from the Sugarshed team, which was unexpected in August and certainly impacted the team down there. Trudy was a popular tour guide at the Serena Sugarshed with an infectious warmth, positivity and passion for her role. We are still in shock at her passing, and my thoughts are with the team at Sugarshed, Trudy's family and the Serena community. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Director. Questions? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have 3 questions. The first one is on page 49, the expressions of interest for the PDA still notes that the Sentinel Group are listed as interested in being in the expressions of interest. I'm just wanting to know, is that still current?
Acting Director.
Yeah, from my understanding of that process, it's still underway with the tender process yet to be finalised, but I can take that on notice and provide more detail.
Thank you. The second question, Your Worship, is page 51. I'm just a little bit unsure about the data that I've been looking at. I looked at this month's and I looked at last month's, and the data is very, very different. So it's in relation to park booking fees. For example, the March Mackay Regional Botanic Gardens fees were waived, which is fine. They were quite high, but I do note that in the same report last month that there's quite a difference of a discrepancy, and that the graphs you would think wouldn't change, you know, from this month prior, and that they're very, very different. So I'm wanting to understand why the two graphs would be so different when the data is past data. It shouldn't change. Yeah.
Acting Director.
I'll take that one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Worship.
Thank you.
And question 3 is on page 61. There is the Invest Mackay funded events. On the 8th and 10th of October, there's the freshwater fishing and stocking workshop at the Windmill Convention Centre, which is fabulous. I just wondered if I could have some further details to find out who's running the workshop, because if I'm able, I would like to attend.
Can you circulate that or?
Yeah, we have just received notice too that they have decided to postpone that just with some travel restrictions that they've had, but we'll circulate the updated information that's occurred since the report was finalised.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Bonaventura.
Just on page 59, it's good to see that we finally got a graph with some new data on the economic data with the quarterly graph. I was just after some more detail, if I could, on the numbers at the bottom, the ones to do with the lots approved and lot registered. While there is some explanation in the notes, I would just like to confirm firstly that the numbers are for 3 months, because they seem very, very low, and just maybe your thoughts on why they are so much lower than the previous ones.
Yeah, so we had a look at that data and there has been a significant drop off. So what we can put it down to is the end of the home building stimulus. So the home builder package did end in April, and that's for contracts that were signed up until the 31st of March. So if you track back pre-COVID, we have landed back where we were prior to that stimulus coming into play, and where we saw a huge amount of applications received and lots of activity in home buying and home building as well. So we would expect that to be a return to normal from this point, that we did just see that spike due to that extra stimulus from the federal government.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Mann.
I did have one, just in regard to the financial report on page 44. Just wondering if it's possible to standardise where we see how the reports across all departments, because they look
We're
different.
going back to the financial report.
No, this is development services.
Oh, okay,
on page
right, thank
44.
you.
So their financial report is different to every other department, and I'm just wondering if we can report it all the same on how it looks.
Okay.
Because in the others you can see explanations on variances, and this is just a general explanation up above, but nothing really specific. So org services report there's the same as ECI, so I'm just wondering if it can be the same.
Okay.
Happy to take that on
Thank you.
this report.
Anything further? Nothing further? Would somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Jones moves, seconded by Councillor Anglert. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to highlight one item on the agenda, and of course it's to do with fishing. So I'd like to say that, as I always mention, that the highest boat registrations in Queensland are here in Mackay, and that we have 15 boat ramps less than we should have for that number of boats. Our economic development team, in collaboration with our Corp Comms team within council, have been banging their drum about fishing for the region since the net-free zone was implemented 5 years ago. They have produced the recreational fishing strategy for the region, and we're about to review that to get ready for the next strategy, which will be developed through the working group. The council staff have continued their promotion for the Hooked on Mackay brand and opportunities for a Barra Highway between Rockhampton, who have the Fitzroy River, and Mackay with dams and estuaries, all within one hour of our CBD for fishing in all types of weather conditions. I also note the e-stats on page 60 showing the Hooked on Mackay Facebook and Instagram and the Hooked on Mackay YouTube subscribers and the voluntary code of conduct for the net-free zone. They are the highest stats for the month of August, but it's also interesting to note that it is as such every month since February this year. These stats have been climbing steady, so I think, Your Worship, that our Barra Highway will certainly become a reality in Mackay, and we will be the best fishing destination in Queensland. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Is there a speaker against? Any other speakers? No other speakers? Okay, Councillor Anglert speaking for.
Thank you, Worship.
The final leachate samples have been taken from the botanical gardens, and we expect a report on that by the end of September, so that's been a long time coming. Council's been successful in our submission to host the Developing Northern Australia Conference in 2022. That's a big event, and it'll be really good to have people from all over the country coming to our region and seeing what we have to offer. As mentioned, Council's helping the Mackay Area Fish Stocking Association to come up with alternative incomes. Now they're developing some face buffs and bumper stickers through the Mackay region visitor information centres, and all the proceeds go back to the Mackay Area Fishing Stocks Association. So I encourage anyone that is serious about ensuring that fishing is well supported in our region to support the Mackay Area Fish Stocking Association and obtaining one of those things, so that they can keep stocking the fish that our fisher people will be getting into the future. The sugar shed performance again is above what's expected. 1,215 ticket sales with a net value of $24,840. This is in spite of lockdowns and closures of New South Wales and Victoria. We attended the launch of the 3-year special run. I believe, I don't know if they're sold out or not yet, but that's a very rare piece of kit from our sugar shed, and I would encourage anyone who can get their hands on one of those to support them and get one of only 115 made for this for that line. They're now selling new lines of confectionery as well at the sugar shed, so now you can buy yourself a drink and eat a bunch of lollies while you're there. The 15th anniversary open day was on the 12th of September, and the good thing about that, all of the original players, I mean the mayor got to speak and the deputy mayor got to speak, but all of the early players in getting that organisation up and running just goes to show, the business takes time to develop itself, and I'm glad we definitely spent the time supporting that business to actually see its potential. Events for the month of September, we've got the Rumble and the Reef occurring this week. We got the Rumble at the Wake Park this week as well. So that's incorporated both the skating and the wakeboarding into the one event. It really is well supported and becoming a premier event in Australia. On the 23rd to 28th of September, the Queensland Championship finals for bowls will be at the South Suburbans Bowls Club. And on the 24th, 25th of September 2021, the Girls Sevens Junior State Championships will be at the Mackay Junior Rugby Football Club. Of course, all of these are Invest Mackay funded by Mackay Regional Council. We encourage anyone to go and support those events.
Thanks, Councillor Engel. Any other speakers? Put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Thank you. Let's move on to the ECI reports for the month of August, and we'll start with transport and drainage.
Thank you,
Director.
Thank you, Your Worship. Touching on safety, so 6 injuries for the month, which is disappointing, and 1 LTI where we had an employee trying to hitch a tailgate and fall and hit his head and been off for some time. So concerning, but we're investigating all those to make sure that we put the appropriate actions in place to prevent them going forward. We farewelled Andrew Gibbs after many years of service in the local government, and excited to welcome Joanne Pereira into the organisation as new Manager of Civil Operations. Been a focus on heavy patching throughout the month, so the southern area, and then moving to North Mackay next month. Maintenance activities have been around footpath defects, open drain mowing and signage maintenance. We continue to work on the asset management programs to obviously do data claims and get ready for the upcoming audit through valuation. Currently the budget is tracking on target. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director. Are there questions for the Director? Councillor Bonachura.
Just on page 70, I noticed under item 3.4, bridge maintenance. And it's good to see that routine bridge maintenance happening and some minor maintenance being completed, Your Worship. But just want to know, what's our interval time for inspections on our bridges? How often and do we do those inspections?
Director.
Yeah, through Your Worship. Level 1 is more routine, so that's another assessment we do. And then level 2 are more depending on the priority or hierarchy of the bridge, so major structures versus minor, and what condition rating they're actually currently at. So that could vary to between once to every 3 years, depending on what type of structure it is.
Long spacing. Yeah, that is a long spacing, but that's fine. If it's working, that's great. Thank you.
Further questions? Councillor Bella.
This may well be self-explanatory, but I just wish to check. So we had a shallow Telstra cable hit while degrassing a drain by MRC employees, and then a Telstra cable laying in long grass, which was done by a contractor. Obviously, two separate incidents, two separate sites. I'll speak to that. We'll speak to the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? No further questions? Somebody like to move the adoption of the report for ECI Transport and Drainage. Councillor Mann moves, seconded by Councillor Jones. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Worship. I wanted to touch on safety too, and note there were a number of incidents and a lost time injury. And while it isn't ideal, it provides learnings, and our thoughts certainly are with the worker as they recover. There was a large number of maintenance activities completed for August, and the highest numbers being footpath repairs, signage and open drain maintenance, so that's really good to see. And while the client survey results haven't been compiled for August, I did have feedback from someone that did lodge a customer request saying how easy it was to complete a survey, and they were grateful for the opportunity to be able to do that actually, and it was very complimentary towards our staff. I just wanted to mention the comprehensive and extensive information we're now seeing for asset management. As we know that we have a huge amount of assets, both seen and unseen, and I don't think we've ever had a greater focus on trying to value those assets and trying to work out exactly what we've got. So I think the report clearly shows where we're at in each area of council, where we have risks and where we're on track. So I think I actually congratulate the Director for the reporting that we're seeing. And I just did want to mention too, in the report about our retiring manager, Andrew Gibbs, where it says he had an extinguished career. I think we meant distinguished. So I hope we did mean that.
I think that probably was.
And I had the pleasure of working with Andrew who passed another motion, and nothing was ever too much trouble. And I would like to welcome the new manager, Yamin Pereira, and wish him a very successful career at council.
Thanks very much, Councillor Mann. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Bella speaking for.
Two things I'd like to comment on. The unsealed road maintenance program, always good to see, especially the roadside drainage maintenance. Drains make your roads, and I've seen the change over the years in our maintenance of those drains and the durability of our roads. I had the opportunity, it was actually a couple of months ago, while driving along a relatively obscure country road and running on our crews that were testing gravel depth on that road, and was very pleasing to see just the coverage of gravel that we had on that road. The other thing I'm not so happy about, these comments where we've hit 2 Telstra cables, and in no way am I in any way criticising council for this. This has been a problem for many, many years, which both myself and my family have had problems with. To hit a cable laying in long grass would imply that it's been laying there at least for the period the grass has taken to grow. And when we have such a problem with coverage with mobile phones, and we have such poor maintenance of our landlines, I actually think it's quite disgraceful. And the fact that council staff have got to go reporting that they've damaged something, to be quite frank, that shouldn't be bloody well there in the first place, is unacceptable. I actually worked for a mob that laid cable, and I know how quickly standards can decline. And I really think as a council we should be approaching Telstra. And in many cases, someone that cuts these cables is then harassed with regard to responsibility for having done so. These cables don't follow. It's all very well to say dial before you dig. When it's sitting on the surface in long grass, you just wouldn't expect it. I really don't see in this day and age that this is acceptable in any way, and it needs to be fixed.
Thanks, Councillor Bella. Are there other speakers? Other speakers? I think we record as part of this, and Councillor Mann has already done it, but I think we record the whole council's appreciation of Andrew Gibbs' service in civil ops. He had more send-offs than Johnny Farman, but it was a great contribution to our council from Andrew. So let's record that in the minutes. Okay, if there's no further speakers, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. ECI report for waste services for the month of August.
Thank you, Worship. So again, pleasing to see no LTIs or incidents for the month of waste services team. Open pocket landfill tonnages are up for the month, so a little bit that could be contributing to our own capital works program where we've taken some material from the Seagull boat ramp works. 228 tonnes of material sold in incredible tip shops, so again, it's been very popular and lots of people obviously accessing that facility. 308,000 bin lifts again with 57 new services, so again our contractors are working well obviously with our team. Very pleasing to see the turnout and outcome from the Great Northern Cleanup, so again a great outcome for our community. However, we're picking up material that shouldn't obviously be there, but it's a great event. Just a reminder that waste vouchers are coming to the end for the current period for at the end of September, so currently sitting at 22.8%. So last corresponding period we got up to 28% redemption rate, so we may see a late flurry in September. And just highlight there's a number of business improvements sort of occurring in the waste area across capital, operational and strategy, so pleasing to see those things progressing. Otherwise, I have to take questions.
Thanks, Director. Questions for the Director on this report? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. I have two questions. On page 88, I see that we've had a Murph tour completed this month. So I'm just assuming that now that our COVID restrictions have lifted more and more over a period of time, that those tours are going to continue. It's not just a one-off. So,
yeah, through your web, certainly. Where we can, obviously within our COVID plan, we'll try and get an opportunity to have as many tours as we can.
Yeah.
Second question, Councillor Jones.
On page 96, Your Worship, and my memory's not really serving me well at the moment, but I don't have a date of a previous agenda, but I just recall that the issue around at Bayersville, around the cap being left off, I feel like that's a deja vu moment, and that cap has been left off previously at that particular site, unless this is the first one and I'm just mixing things up. I just feel like it's a deja vu moment.
The question has this happened before?
Has it happened before?
Through your worship, not that I'm aware of.
No?
So this is the first time obviously we're doing a review of the site with drones and picked it up and then obviously acted quickly. We will do some more due diligence around each of our sites to probably do that as part of the remediation program. So, but I'm not aware that's happened before.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? No further questions? Somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Hassan moves. Councillor Jones seconds. Councillor Hassan.
Thank you, Worship. Just to echo the Director's words, I'd like to sincerely thank everyone in the community who participated in the Great Northern Cleanup over late July, August and early September. It's always a fantastic effort by all the people involved. There was over 3 tonnes of rubbish collected over 11 sites. So huge thanks to council staff, volunteers and organisations that were involved. They're giving up their own time on the weekends to basically collect other people's rubbish. So while it's disappointing that rubbish is there in the first place, huge thanks to everybody who got in and put in the effort and gave up their time to clean it up. Just echoing Councillor Jones's words also, it's really good to see that the tours of the Material Recovery Centre are back up and running, and our waste education trail is back out in the community once again. I think that educating our younger generation is the key to improving our recycling and reuse of our materials, and I'd just like to commend the officers for continuing that work. And also just encourage schools, community groups and organisations to participate in those tours. It's really interesting to see what goes on within that facility. There's quite a bit of technology involved and it's always really interesting to see what can and can't be recycled. As the Director said, we had over 308,000 bin lifts for the month by our contractors across the region, and that included 57 new services, which again is a really good indicator of the growth that's continuing to happen across the region. And out of that total, there were only 37 bins missed. So out of 308,000, only 37 were missed. So I think that's an outstanding result and a great reflection of the work being done by the contractors. And again, just like to commend staff and contractors on their continued focus on safety. Again, there were no lost time injuries by the waste, within the waste services business this month, and that's a really good reflection of the proactive safety culture across the waste services business.
Thanks, Councillor Hassan. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Jones, speaking for.
Yes, Your Worship. Just to reiterate what the Director and Councillor Hassan have said about the Great Northern Clean-up, so I won't, well attended, blah, blah, blah. I do have some feedback, however. I received some feedback saying that people would love for it to be on one weekend and not split over two. That made things very confusing. So I also personally note in the report that the tonnages from Riverside Drive were quite high, I just wonder, what Your Worship, whether or not, and seeking your advice, whether or not it's possible that we are able to maybe think about putting a more added focus in that area. Not that we should have to pick up anybody else's rubbish, but if we're able to concentrate on that area, I think that would just make life a lot easier come that time of year when we have volunteers going down and cleaning up that area. And as years go by, council were planning on doing more and more work in that area to open that area up to the community more. So I think we need to do a concerted effort in that area if we can.
I think that was the general idea from the team as well, so
thank you.
A good suggestion. Councillor Green, speaking for.
Yes, thank you. Just to add to my 2 cents to the Great Northern Australian Cleanup, again, my gratitude to the 163 volunteers and the council staff who gave up their time to help clean up our local environment across those many dates. 2021 actually saw a better result than 2019, which is fantastic with that 3.32 was collected this year. But whilst there were some really great volunteer numbers at some locations, particularly if a local group organised themselves to be present, other sites like Seaforth and Woodlands Reserve really only had 1 or 2 show up, and it was our waste resources recovery officer that really had to do a lot of the work there himself. I volunteered on 2 separate occasions at Blacks Beach and at Acacia Beach, and I really was impressed by how well the events were run by Bruce Thompson, our resource education officer, and the quality of the cleanup kits provided by Clean Up Australia Day. They really did help keep us safe and hydrated. But to add to some feedback there that I've also received, I also think, in my opinion, a possible rebrand back to the well-known Clean Up Australia Day moniker might help us to see an increase in volunteer numbers in future years. There was confusion from the feedback that I received from people about what is Great Northern Australia Cleanup when they were trying to find the dates and the locations. They weren't sure what to put into the search engine, so that's just some feedback for council for future years. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Green. Councillor Bella, speaking for.
As you know, won't be long before we hit the cyclone season, and people should start to think about cleaning up. So I'm actually here to provide a bit of an alternative. We get a lot of people complaining that we don't do curbside pickups and things such as that, and we know that it is extremely cost prohibitive, logistically prohibitive to do such a thing. But at the moment, there haven't been better prices for anything metal at the moment through all our recyclers organisations, and I'm probably doing us out of a bit of business here, but the prices are exceptional, and I just suggest to people that they maybe get together with a few friends or their street or whatever, run a trailer to one of the recycling mobs. We ran one just the other day. We were pleasantly surprised, just some old fencing wire and some sheets of corrugated iron, and received close to $200. So it's an alternative, that old garden shed or anything you've got that's metal. They're keen to get it, and it's just another way that you can actually end up with a few dollars in your pocket, clean the place up, and not have to complain about no one coming to get it.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Firstly, the Director's right, dump vouchers expire at the end of the month, and Director, I have a load just about ready to go, so I'll be in there with my load before the end end of the month. Just in relation to, just quickly on the Great Northern Cleanup, I suppose having attended the Riverside Drive area, where almost 1/3 of the waste came from, yes, there was a percentage of illegal dumping, and that's a common factor, and Councillor Jones is right. Possibly some preventative methods or something out there to try and slow that would be great. But I think the biggest disappointment, I'm sure it's from all the councillors that went out to collect rubbish, is that general rubbish. The wrapper from, anything you've picked up or a plastic container, it was everywhere. And that's the disappointing thing. And I know we often get asked, oh, why don't you create free dumping? That way there'd be no rubbish lying around. It wouldn't change 80% of what we picked up, because it was that general rubbish that went out the window, or they were there enjoying the riverside, as Councillor Jones said, and just left whatever they had on the side without a care in the world. That is disappointing, and I do ask public to lift their act and just try and do a little bit better. Look, the last comment I'd like to make is just in relation to our landfill. It's almost reaching 9,000 tonnes, and it's interesting to note that when you look at the graph that's there, the commercial industrial sector has been on the rise since January, and a major contributor to these constant rise. And to me, Your Worship, that points to a buoyant construction industry and a very positive indicator for the Mackay region. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bonadier. Any other speakers? No other speakers up on the motion? Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Move on to the final ECI report for water services for the month of August. Director.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just locking in safety again, so 3 incidents, but no obviously LTIs. We're starting to see water consumption starting to increase this time of the year, so even though we've had a little bit of rain, this is the normal period where we see our increases occur, and obviously the time that you should be signed up to my H2O and the time that you should be looking at how your water is being used across this period. So encourage people to continue to do that. We had 898 leak notifications issued from non-My H2O waters compared to the 5,652 for My H2O members. Again, that's another good plug to obviously hook up so you can get notification directly as soon as you can. Pleasing to see the midpoint pipeline has been completed and scouring is starting to occur, so looking forward to see how that impacts water quality going forward, especially into the warmer period where we've traditionally had our issues up there. Plumbing applications have been pretty consistent over the last 5 months, so we had a little bit of spike at the start of the year, but consistent since then. And probably just highlight, we probably haven't touched on for a while, that our lab and the work they do. So over 1,000 sort of batches in, but over 28,000 sort of tests completed on those batches. So do a significant amount of work. And lastly, but certainly not least, and we couldn't wait for the next monthly report, so obviously we had our best tasting water occur in Queensland again, and very pleasing to say that our Marion Water Treatment Plant took it out again. So that's 3 out of the last 4 years in Queensland. And obviously the Marion Water Treatment Plant obviously went on to win the best tasting water in Australia 2 years ago. So we'll obviously go up again against the rest of the state in early 22. But we wanted to obviously bring a couple of our key people that have achieved that. So Brian Woods, who's our water treatment plant water coordinator, and Mick Hills, who's one of our treatment plant operators, to present the trophy to the Mayor.
Brian and Mick, thank you very much.
Mr Mayor, and on behalf of the treatment team, we wish to present you with this nice little trophy.
Well, I accept this on behalf of the council, but we wouldn't have had this in our hands if it wasn't for you guys. So thank you very much for what you do. We are very proud of the water, says the director drinking a glass of the water. And so we're very proud of not just the water that we produce, but of course of the people in our team who produce it on a daily basis. So thank you very much. So on to the world next year, I think it is, isn't the world? The World Championships. Take out that little town in Texas that beat us last time. Okay, questions for the water report. Councillor Bell.
The 897 leak no cut notifications for non-My H2O members. Could we ask the director to give us an idea of, just for public knowledge, the process that we go through to first of all detect that leak when it's a non-My H2O.
Director.
Yeah, through your worship. So we obviously monitor all our networks, so we're getting the data real time for everything, obviously. So in relation to those, we'll do an assessment. If there's a significant leak, we'll make every effort to make contact with the property owner to alert them to the fact. Otherwise, if it's a minor leak, we basically do an assessment at the end of the month and send out a letter to the resident. So that's why, obviously, being on My H2O, you can set up your own controls about the frequency and when you might want to get notifications around leak, you get that immediate notification.
Councillor Miller.
Further question, would it be correct to say that the amount or the volume per leak of those 897 as compared to one in the 5,652 would be greater? So non-H2O leaks before they're notified and then controlled, would there be a greater volume of water lost than with a My H2O?
Yeah, through your worship, without having the data in front of me, that's a good assumption to make, because obviously the ability to get in to fix that leak immediately once it's known is not there, because it may have been going on for a number of weeks before they actually get notified.
So it would be a significant cost both to council and obviously to the ratepayer.
Through your worship, this is on the customer side, so we obviously still charge for that, so we're actually recovering the revenue, so it's really the customer is the one that's losing out.
You're saying the cost.
No, I understand. I was talking about the cost
water.
with regard to resource. So.
Okay. Further questions? Any further questions? Somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Green, no, sorry, Councillor Jones, please. Seconded by Councillor Mann. Councillor Jones.
I think the report is very thorough, Your Worship.
Okay, very good, thank you. No further speakers then. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thanks. Org Services monthly review for the month of August, and we have an acting director of Org Services as well.
Good morning, Your Worship. Unfortunately, Kylie had to activate the medical substitute for the bench this morning. From the department, safety continues to be a focus, but unfortunately had an employee injured their knee while standing up from their desk, resulting in 3 days lost time injury during August. And they continue to get worse, so that's why they end up lost time injury. Some of the highlights over the month have included the customer service team again achieved outstanding customer satisfaction results. 97% completed surveys indicate that external customers were satisfied with the service that was provided. The information services team continued exceptional request resolution and satisfaction survey results with 99% satisfaction rating. The fleet team took delivery of road patching trucks fitted with elevated work platforms, and operational trucks complete with small cranes, trailers and chainsaws, and some of those are displayed in the report. And also report that we've also had other vendors come out and provide plant displays so that our staff have an understanding of what the industries are providing in terms of that type of plant. Property services officers have assisted in many maintenance tasks at the Beaverton Stadium and showcasing the facility for the Mackay NRL semi-finals held over the weekend, and it's evident from that of the brilliant collaboration and commendable outcome that those teams have achieved across the board across council. The values and behaviours refresh, which council was briefed on last week. Over 500 employees have participated. We've got it down to two sets. And the workshop's great success. SLT and ELT will be considering those 2 sets early in October, with a plan to come back to council to brief in late October, early November. Workplace health and safety team coordinated hold-up sessions, and I'd just like to say that coordinated hold-up response sessions, so people got a little bit confused about what we were training people to do, but that's facilitated by the Queensland Police, across all of our customer-facing staff. So all of our customer-facing staff, well received and valuable tips on what to do in case staff are confronted by an armed person. So that's all of our customer-facing stuff, which was an excellent session. Any questions?
Thank you, Acting Director. Questions for the Acting Director? Councillor Mann.
I've got 2. So one is in relation to insurance costs. I saw that a couple of departments reported insurance costs were higher. I'm just wondering what the percentage increase was as opposed to what we budgeted for.
Okay, Director, can you answer that? Take them on notice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just in relation to shared services, Do we now have all positions filled within customer service?
Worship, no, we don't, not all at this stage, but we are working through that in recruiting those positions.
Okay. Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Worship. Page 143, we have 9.2, it's the organisational development metrics. I note in the bottom one there it says apprentices, coordination of training, la la la. It says that it was done for 17 apprentices, yet on the right in the column it says 12, so I'm just not sure what the difference of the 5 is.
We'll get that confirmed for you, Councillor.
That's okay. And just on the same section, I just wanted to ask, with the apprentices and the trainees that we have, 12 and 8, I'm wondering what the breakup is in numbers for Indigenous, the numbers for Torres Strait Islanders and the numbers for Australia South Sea Islanders compared to our non-Indigenous employed in the Mackay Regional Council.
We'll take that on notice as well, the answer back.
Thank you. All right. Further questions? Councillor Bonaventura.
Just one, if I may, Your Worship. Just in relation to the Blue Water Lagoon, and if the Director could give me an update on how we're going with repairs in that Blue Water Lagoon, as I've had actually 2 inquiries in the last week asking me what the situation is.
Which I can provide an initial report. So the initial report I want to give you is that the coordinator responsible for those repairs has actually gone into a meeting this morning and expects to have more detailed information this afternoon, which is about a review and provide back, but I can give you an update this morning. On the resurfacing, including the balance tank relining, so a consultant was on site on Friday last week, capturing a number of data that's not in the as constructed drawings, so things such as expansion joint finishing and floor to edging joints, which I understand is related to the resurfacing. So we expect to have the scoping documents by the end of next week, and our contracts team is aware of that and will process as soon as practicable. On the main circulation line rectification, the issues have been diagnosed. Variation has been added to the existing contract. We're just waiting advice back from the contractor when they will schedule those works. And on the roof renewal, the solar panels are to be removed by the 30th of September. The roof replacement will be commencing by the end of the following week, and the chemical air extraction system will be installed on the week of the 22nd of October. So that's just an update from this morning, but the coordinator is going in meetings today. I expect more detailed response going right after that.
And so once we get that, maybe we can have it circulated. Just a time frame, I guess. That's what we need. Sounds like a little bit of work to come yet. Councillor Green.
So on that, will we be continuing to offer free entrance at the mark on the weekends to our residents?
That I know, but I expect that will be the case.
That was what the intent was, to offer free weekends at the mark until such time as the rectification work has been completed and we can reopen the Blue Water Lagoon. So the question is, Councillor Seymour.
Regarding the trusses at Paget Depot that have been cut to fit the aircon, has it been damaged like that since construction began?
From my understanding, is that was done during the construction phase, that was on the installation, and that is being rectified now as we go back and fix the ducting. So it would appear that the building was built, the ducting was put in, and some modifications were made to the trusses to fit the ducting, and that's now being rectified. Right. Or is it in the process of being rectified?
Okay. Further questions? No further questions for the Org Services report. Would somebody like to move the report's adoption, please? Councillor Mann moves, seconded by Councillor Green. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Worship. So just on safety, minimal incidences, but as we've had a lost time injury, and thoughts are certainly with that staff member as they recover. Our internal audit area of council has a comprehensive plan for 21-22, and those audits have commenced. And I also note our external audit has commenced as well. And I just think it goes to show the measures, that we go through, or it highlights the amount of governance and accountability there is in this council, that we do have extensive external and internal auditing. Just some stats for shared services. 6,453 emails were received for August, which is at 1,621 more than the same period for last year. So that's an enormous amount of extra work that staff are doing. Total of 8,147 calls were received, averaging 371 calls per day, and that's 770 calls more than last year as well. the grade of service KPI was met despite the increase in call handling time. So I did note that the call handling times were 5 minutes and 31 as opposed to what they normally are. So again, I think the calls were more complex for staff. I would like to congratulate Shared Services for again meeting or exceeding KPIs. They deliver a very vital service to council and we're very grateful for what they do.
Yeah, thank you. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura speaking for.
Thank you, Worship. Just one point, if I may, and that's in relation to the new graph that the Director has put in on page 128. This new graph gives us a breakdown between emails, general requests and SnapSend sold. And look, thank you, Director, because this helps give me a better understanding of how the residents interact with Council on a whole range of issues. So I really do appreciate that graph being in there, so thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bonaventura. Any other speakers? Other speakers, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. There's no petitions, there's no tenders, there's no notified motions today. Public participation. We have a couple registered for, no, one person. Mr Robinson. Mr Robinson, you've got 3 minutes, as you know. You've been here before, we haven't seen you for a long time, but welcome to council.
Thank you, everybody. Good morning. I own that I do not believe in the community. I do not believe in the public sector. I believe in the royal community. I tried for Mother Nature, representing pure love and tranquility for accepting us calmly and them of food and water. I went to grade 4. I done grade 4 twice. And I started looking out the window. Now I believe in the good Lord. Praise God.
Okay, I'll give it to the...
Thank you.
If you take the exo will take that, thanks. Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I do not, I reckon that colonial Commonwealth Constitutional Bill is fraud, and everyone, instead of being treated, should be treated like others. Everybody in the world be treated as public and royal servants for their royal community as a God's child. And I believe in you, Lord, for that's among the money. Yeah, very good.
Mr. Robinson.
Oh, my God.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much.
Have yourself a lovely day. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Robinson.
It's not my fault, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Late business. Councillors, we had some very good feedback from the NRL about our games on the weekend. I just needed to share that with you this morning. Some very positive comments in their emails to us. As you know, they were sellout games on Saturday and Friday. Quite why some people buy tickets and don't turn up still got me beat. But anyway, there's 5,824 people who turned up on Friday and 6,011 on Saturday. The most important thing that the NRL wanted to actually outline to the council was that they had a record viewership, all-time record viewership of those two games of 2.8 million people.
Wow.
Obviously that's because it was in Mackay. But they were quite stoked, and I think we should be too. I mean, a number of times Mackay was mentioned. online and on the public service networks, just outstanding. We also had a Hooked on Mackay feature produced for the whole Mackay Finals wrap-up, and that was on their website, on NRL's website, and to date it's had 54,000 views. So it was, they were stoked, and I think we should be too. So it's great feedback from the NRL. Right, any further late business? Councillor Bonaventura.
Thank you, Your Worship. Last Wednesday, I had the opportunity to be with the audience at the visit by Ash Maloney. Ash Maloney is the first Australian to win a medal of any colour in the decathlon for Australia at the Olympic Games, and it was part of his roadshow that he came through North Queensland. So look, it was a great event. There was quite a large number of public there. The Mackay Road Runners waited and waited till they could get a photo with him as a group. There was also quite a few children that wanted to get autographs signed. But I think the smiles on, and I've got a photo of one of the little children, and the smile just says it all. And especially when Ash was kind enough to give him his medal to hold, I think that said it all, and there are some great photos around. But he did thank Mackay, and he asked me to present this to council. So, very humble young man, a very nice young man. So,
thanks very much. Thanks for representing us. Thank you. That's very nice. Thank you. Here we go. Thanks, Councillor Bonaventura. Further late business? No further late business. Councillors, we've got 3 confidential reports, one of them being the confidential legal report. Does anybody want to move into? Okay, would somebody like to move that we close the meeting to public? That's moved by Councillor Jones, seconded by Councillor Green. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thanks. All right, we're back on.
Everyone's working.
Legal Services report for August at 17.1. Would somebody like to move the adoption? Councillor Mann moves, Councillor Anglett seconds. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. 17.2, the approved concessions under the Facilitating Development of the Mackay Region policy for August. Somebody like to move its adoption? Councillor Anglett moves, Councillor Townsend seconds. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Thank you. 17.3, the approved sponsorship under the Invest Mackay Events and Conference Attraction Program for August. Somebody like to move? Councillor Green moves, Councillor Jones seconds. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Thank you, councillors. Thank you very much, CEO and directors and acting directors and people. I declare the meeting closed.